All right, let's dive in. Today, we're digging into a pretty dark and complex idea from our source material: how big institutions can end up being the perfect cover for individual acts of cruelty. We're going to explore how this whole symphony of malice gets put together, piece by piece, from a single quiet whisper to a massive collective roar of harm. So let's kick things off with this quote from a character called the Assault Droid, like emergent titanic demons. Whoa, that's some heavy imagery, right? It just perfectly captures the core idea for today, this terrifying, almost monstrous power that groups can unleash. But how in the world does a bunch of individuals turn into that? Well, that's exactly what we're here to figure out. So, if you want to understand a titanic demon, where do you even start looking? Well, according to our source, it doesn't begin with some big dramatic explosion. No, it starts much, much smaller. It starts with a tiny personal whisper of malice. And that brings us to our first character, the little evil bat. Now, what's fascinating here is that the bat isn't some supervillain corrupting good people. Not at all. It represents that initial seed of malice. You know, a suggestion, an idea. But it's only whispered to those who are already willing to listen, the ones who already have that spark of cruelty inside them. The bat calls itself redundant, which sounds odd, but it's actually the whole point. The evil is redundant because it doesn't have to create anything new. It's not planting a seed, it's just watering one that's already there. All it does is give permission, a little nudge, to an impulse that was already lurking in the individual. It activates, it doesn't corrupt. And this is where things get really scary. That tiny, individual whisper, it's not acting alone. Suddenly, it gets amplified. It has the full backing of these massive, powerful systems, the entire apparatus of the state. And that's how a quiet, personal impulse transforms into a huge systemic threat. Okay, so how does that happen exactly? How does someone's quiet willingness to hurt someone else get turned into an actual powerful weapon? Well, this is where the collective comes into play, and with it comes the most dangerous idea of all, the feeling that you can get away with it. Our assault droid is back to spell it out for us. The magic word here is impunity. It's this intoxicating idea that you can act without consequence, that you can hurt people with absolutely no regard for what happens next. The group doesn't just give you power, it gives you what feels like a moral blank check. And this chart just lays it all out, doesn't it? When you're acting on your own, you're probably hesitant. You're personally accountable for your actions. But the moment you become part of a collective, an extension of the state, as the droid puts it, all that personal accountability just evaporates, and it's replaced by this feeling of immense power and empowerment. Now, here's a really crucial point. It's so easy to blame all this on one evil leader, right? But the source argues that's not what's happening here. The dark power of the collective, its psychopathy, comes from the fact that all the members, every single one, they agree with the cruelty. It's a shared malice. So now we've got this weaponized collective. How does it operate? Not by hiding in the shadows. No. It operates right out, in the open, disguised by the very rules and language of the institution itself. A character called the Lord introduces this incredible metaphor, the sword and the shield. Think of it like this. Every institution of this kind has two faces. There's the sword, that's what's actually happening, the real intentional act of causing harm. And then there's the shield. That's the official story, the public justification, all the proper language about care and procedure that completely hides what the sword is doing. And it's not just a vague idea. The Lord breaks it down into this chillingly bureaucratic three-step process. First, the sword. The act of harm is reframed in cold, neutral terms, like a service for a client. Second, the coin. The person doing the harm gets paid, which incentivizes them to do it more efficiently. And finally, the shield. The whole thing is justified to the public as some kind of necessary help, making the malice look like care. So what is the result of all this? What does it actually feel like to live in a world governed by this hidden violence, this constant deception? Well, the result is a deep, profound sense of confusion and hopelessness. This quote from Adventurer 3 just nails that feeling. Incoherence. It's this nagging sense that things are deeply, fundamentally wrong, that they just don't add up. People caught in this system can feel the rot, the contradiction between what's said and what's done, but they can't quite name it. It just feels disjointed, broken. And this incoherence, it's not just confusing, it's soul-crushing. It leads to this state of complete and utter hopelessness, a feeling that you cannot animate a future. I mean, how can you plan for tomorrow when you can't even trust the reality of today? It's paralyzing. And this cynical take from the elf archer shows the final, bleakest outcome. It's a total collapse into nihilism. The absurdity of the system is no longer fought against. It's just accepted as, well, everything's absurd anyway, so what's the difference? It's a kind of resignation that lets the whole broken system just keep on going. Okay, let's pull all these threads together now. From that first individual whisper to the institutional shield, we can finally see the full performance. We can unmask this symphony of collective malice. So here it is, the whole anatomy of the symphony. The musicians, they're the individuals who are ready and willing to do harm from the very start. The instruments they play, that's the collective, the institution that gives them power and impunity. The score they're reading from, that's the official language, the facade of care that provides the perfect cover story. And the performance itself, well, that's the real systemic harm that gets inflicted. And if you take just one thing away from all of this, let it be this. The institution, the collective, it's not some abstract evil force that exists on its own. It's a vehicle. It's an amplifier. It's the tool that allows the combined malice of its members to be expressed in a way that none of them could ever achieve on their own. Which, of course, brings us full circle, right back to where we started. If these huge systems are just tools, just amplifiers for the people inside them, it forces us to ask a really tough question. Where does it all truly begin? And the answer, it seems, leads us right back to that first quiet whisper, and the individual who is ready and willing to listen.